Rotational power is one of the most valuable and sought after assets in all of sports. And in this video, I'm going to give you 3 keys to improving your rotational power so that you can throw and hit harder than ever before. Baseball players who hit massive bombs, quarterbacks with rocket arms, boxers with devastating hooks, all have one thing in common, and that's huge rotational power. Rotational power depends on 3 key elements: lower body strength and power, trunk strength and power, and hip rotation mobility. These 3 elements are what allow us to produce power effectively in the transverse plane, and I'm going to break down each one of them for you right now. Lower body strength and power is fundamental to being able to produce power in the transverse plane. That's because any motion we create has to start with ground reaction force. In order to transfer force through our body, we first have to start by pushing into the ground. By forcefully pushing into the ground, we can create high amounts of ground reaction force that then we can then transfer upwards into our trunk. No matter how strong our trunk is, it doesn't matter if we don't first start by pushing forcefully into the ground. So before we start thinking about developing trunk strength, we first have to get our legs strong and powerful. A good rotational power program starts with lower body basics. Squats, deadlifts, split squats, single leg deadlifts, and lateral squats are staples of our sports performance program to develop lower body strength. Additionally, the inclusion of lower body power exercises like hang cleans, kettlebell swings, or different plyometric variations are going to help us to develop lower body power so we can rapidly produce force by pushing into the ground. If you want to develop rotational power, it all starts at the legs. By developing lower body strength and power, it gives us a starting place to be able to push into the ground and rapidly transfer high amounts of force through our kinetic chain upwards and into the trunk. After developing lower body strength and power, the next piece of the puzzle is developing strength and power at the trunk. Transferring force from our lower body upwards depends on our ability to create trunk stiffness so our torso can act as a force transducer. We should start by training our athletes to create general trunk stiffness in multiple planes of motion. To effectively transfer force, we need to be able to buttress excess motion at the spine and use our core muscles as isometric and eccentric controllers of trunk motion. To do this, we want to use anti-core exercises where we resist motion in the sagittal, frontal, and transverse planes. In the sagittal plane, start with planks and progress to rollouts and body saws to increase difficulty. In the frontal plane, use side plank variations and suitcase carries to develop oblique strength. In the transverse plane, use drills like press outs and chops and lifts to learn how to resist rotational forces. In addition to developing isometric and eccentric core strength, we also need to develop rotational power and neuromuscular coordination. When we see great athletes perform rotational activities, it looks both powerful and effortless. And this is because they're masters of balancing tension and relaxation. In order to rotate forcefully, we need to be able to create stiffness to transfer the force upwards, and then relaxation so that we can rotate rapidly to the point of impact. Many great athletes will do this naturally, but thankfully we can train it. Medicine ball throws are a great tool to help athletes work on expressing their rotational power. Medicine ball drills like side tosses and shot put throws are amazing tools to help athletes develop rapid force production and the timing and neurological coordination necessary to produce high amounts of rotational power. With medicine ball training over time, you'll see athletes' ability to better coordinate the timing and force production necessary to produce fast, smooth, rapid rotational power. Lastly, the most overlooked aspect of rotational power is mobility at the hips. When you watch any rotational activity, you'll see tons of rotation at the hips. The ability to both internally and externally rotate your hips is vital to be able to get the pelvic rotation necessary to transfer force and rotate rapidly in sporting activities. Many recreational athletes lack hip rotation, leaving them dependent on lumbar rotation to produce power. We know from research that this leaves them susceptible to back pain and also leaves a ton of rotational power on the table. To maintain and improve your hip mobility, a regular hip mobility routine can go a really long way. Start by rolling the hip rotators on a foam roller. This is like a cheap massage that can reduce the resting tone in the muscles and begin opening up your range of motion. From there, using hip rotator stretches like the 90-90 stretch in both internal and external rotation positions, as well as a posterior hip rocking stretch, can be a helpful way to keep your hips mobile so you have the rotation you need to rotate safely and powerfully. So that's it, everybody. Remember, train the legs, train the trunk, and keep those hips moving, and you'll have more rotational power than you could ever imagine. If you liked this video and want to watch full exercise demonstrations of some of the exercise mentioned, hit subscribe, follow our channel, and thanks for watching.